Welcome on in, everybody, to the Red Card Radio news episode. We hope to be the main repository that you will need throughout your week for news in and relating to the Premier League and such. Do you not like the?
Repository.
Or do you not
What's a repository?
something that holds things? Holds things. You know.
It sounds like it holds something that you don't want to have anymore.
Oh, okay. I see. You.
Repository.
So yes. All right. If you're new here and this is your first, experience with Red Card Radio, that's what you get. Normally we're three people. Today this week we're just two people because somebody is afraid, doesn't want to show up because his team keeps doing bad things. But if you're new here and you would love to help us out, we would love that too. And you could smash that like button, hit the sub notification bell, give us a follow, subscription, whatever platform you're listening on, whether it's, YouTube or one of your favorite podcast site. Definitely hit us with a subscription. They really, really help us out. And you wouldn't want anything, to happen in your life, right, Sean?
No, because you might be mildly inconvenienced if you don't like, subscribe, rate and review, rate 5-star, and hit the subscribe button and hit the notification button. What might be following you is you catch a levels game, Brad, where you run into lowly Southampton and get levels by a team that is level on points with you and level on clearly skill, but they're higher in the table by one level. Let's just keep it on the same level. By one level than you by goals scored, which they got today against you.
And if you need some context around that, definitely hit back and check our review episode where we break that down. And I think that might be the end of Chelsea slander this week. I don't know. Hopefully not.
I doubt it.
I doubt it too. What we've got on offer, we're going to hit some comments that we got from some of our previous episodes. Then we're going to talk about a major news story in the Premier League before we round out this news episode with transfers. Let's get into that comment. We had a comment from Jimmy, a couple comments this week from Jimmy. This one is specifically pertaining to Liverpool and their start to the season. He says that Liverpool look flat. It's like they never physically or mentally recovered from last year's run, and the pressure to do it again is being felt throughout the club. Had a dreadful start to the game against United, showed some fight to the second half. Currently some midfield issues that need to be resolved tactically, and he admits that they currently have some depth issues, but he thinks that Liverpool's biggest issue right now is a complete lack of being clinical finishers in the final third. Now, I'm going to give Jimmy a caveat here. He made this comment after the United game, before the Bournemouth game, where they scored 9 against Bournemouth. So they were clinical against Bournemouth. Well, some of the players were. There is still a glaring issue in the final third for Liverpool. So what do you make of that, Sean? What do you make about Jimmy's comment about Liverpool and where they are, how they started, things like that?
Think so. You think I'd have my thoughts more together since we just talked about this not too long ago, but no. I think where their problem starts is they're. It seems as though they're spot picking great players as replacements for outgoing players without addressing multiple positions in better ways, if that makes sense. So they made a very good purchase to replace Sadio Mane and Diaz, but they don't have anybody to play behind that if Diaz gets hurt. They made a very good replacement for what seems to be the outgoing Firmino for Nunez in the middle. That seems to be a really good replacement for that. Now you do still have Firmino, so that's not, if Nunez goes out, which he did. You still have somebody to play there, but you haven't been addressing the rest of the aging team. So, and they have, and that's not completely fair. They have been putting a few places here and there, but they're mostly really younger players, and they're not ready to make the jump that Diaz did last year, and hopefully Liverpool gets out of Nunez this year. That type of transition that they're looking for to onto the next squad that's going to continue
Yeah,
this.
like the next iteration of Liverpool. Like,
Yes.
we've had many years now where Liverpool, like, one okay, let me just say it like this. One thing I'm never concerned about with Liverpool is where they're going to find goals. They have an elite attacking core.
I left that out, by the way. I left out the elephant in the room.
Oh, well, yeah, we'll talk about Salah in a second. But like, regardless of what Salah is doing, I think Diaz, Nunez, Jota, Firmino is still an elite attacking core. And then throw on top of that Salah, who will eventually kick on and get the wheel spinning.
I did leave out Jota, so
Yeah,
that is an error on my part. They got Jota last year as well, or no, that was a
2 years,
year and a
yeah,
half. Yeah, two
2 years
years
ago.
ago. They got Jota. He's seems to get injured a lot. He is injured currently. Maybe that's why I'm feeling that way. But he'll be back in October. It seems like. And then so you'll have some maneuverability with the front because I don't think Jota's stricted to the center
No, he can.
at the way Nunez is.
I think
Yeah,
he can play all three, if I'm not mistaken.
sure. Yeah.
But I guess
I,
my point about Liverpool is my only concern is about the midfield. Is about the
yeah.
fact that you have to rely on 37-year-old James Milner to play serious minutes for you. Um,
Or a 34-year-old Henderson.
yeah, like their midfield is
And,
aging, has been aging, and like they haven't
and
they haven't
they
done anything to address it.
shipped out Wijnaldum.
Yeah, they let Wijnaldum go, which I mean they could only do so much
And
to
Wijnaldum
maintain him.
wasn't young. He wasn't a spring chicken. I think he
No,
was like 30, 31.
I feel bad for Wijnaldum actually. He did had a pretty forgettable season last year at PSG. Got a move to Roma to play with Jose, and then 2 weeks into his Roma career, blows up his knee, and now he's out for like 7 or 8 months with like a destroyed ACL. So that's
Yeah.
poor one out for him. Press F. But it's he like Liverpool. It seems to me. This is my point about Liverpool, and I've kind of had this conversation with Tamzid this afternoon on Twitter. Is that it seems like Liverpool were almost surprised that the transfer window opened up, and that they don't have a plan. They haven't had a plan to address the deficiencies or like the aging issues in midfield. They're relying so heavily on Harvey Elliott. How old's Harvey Elliott? Like 20 years old? Like,
If that,
yeah,
I think he's 19.
19,
I,
something like
I
that.
think he's, yeah.
Like it just really seems to me that they either they're just being way too picky and saying that there's no one out there in all of the top division of world football that can improve on James Milner and Jordan Henderson, which to me seems outlandish. Um, or they
I'll
just
say that.
they're surprised that they can sign players right now.
I'll say the same thing I said about United. You just let Harry Winks go to Sampdoria. Like Liverpool don't think Harry Winks can improve anything on a 37-year-old James Milner.
I don't know.
Like he's just played under Mourinho and Conte. Like you don't think he has the work rate?
I don't.
Like he's
Yeah.
got it. He can play under Klopp. Like he may not start right away, but he could have.
I mean, I
Like
guess
he's got the work rate.
there is some interpersonal or like interleague issues there where are Spurs
Sure.
really going to send a player to
I don't.
Liverpool to make Liverpool better? They're more willing to
Sure.
send him to Sampdoria because he's in Italy.
Yeah. Yes. And I'm not saying that's because like I don't know what the fee was to Sampdoria. I think it was something like 15, or it was on loan or
It's
something like
it's
that.
probably a loan with an option that Sampdoria will come back next year and be like, we don't have the
Sure.
money to buy because
But
that's what Italian clubs
if it
do.
was, we would have parted with him. I think we were looking to part with him to Everton for something like 20. We probably would have charged Liverpool 25. Does that improve your team? Yes. Are we but we were gonna move him on in some way anyway.
Yeah, it seems shocking to me that that there's not a single. It's not like we're talking about a poor club. Like Liverpool are one of the most financially like viable clubs in the world.
Yeah.
They make a lot of money. They're super rich. They've got billionaire owners. Like if you look at Nottingham Forest, who just came up from the championship, and they're able to spend 150 million pounds or whatever it is on players. Liverpool Football Club can afford to buy players, and the fact that they really just haven't done much to me, um, it's it's strange. It's really strange. And I think that their biggest, I think that it seems to me that like, I don't know, it seems like they needed to bring in more midfield players and they just haven't done that. I don't know if that's a Jurgen Klopp issue. I don't know if that's a director of football issue. I don't know if that's an FSG issue, but it seems strange that a team 4 months ago who was fighting for a quadruple, had won two domestic cups, was in the Champions League final, was fighting until the last day in the Premier League season, essentially, to win the Premier League. And you see Manchester City spend 100 million or 60 million on Haaland and get Alvarez and like retool, and you are still thinking we're going to rock with the 30 plus midfield that we have and it's just going to be fine. It's it seems to me poor planning. I don't understand how they don't have like a 6 month plan, a 2 year plan, things like that. And they're
No, I understand how it happened. I saw it. It was Tottenham. It was Pochettino. It was ENIC looking at Pochettino overachieving the way Klopp is overachieving, and Pochettino gets him to Champions League, and then they rock with the same 11, and then they add a piece here or there, but it was still. It's still Kane's son and Toby and Yan and Larice, and it's still the boys.
yeah,
And then part with Walker, and then we don't really find a replacement.
yeah,
And then then we just make it to a Champions League final, and they're like, oh, well, guess we'll trot the boys out next year. And then the following year, they just fire Pochettino like it's his fault. Like, you haven't done crap for 5 years, and we're getting passed by, man.
yeah.
Like,
And especially with the
I,
fact that like your best player isn't really performing yet this season. Um,
for Liverpool,
yeah,
yeah.
in
So
Salah,
Salah's not doing his thing, yeah.
yeah, I think I think it's going to be a long season for them. Thanks, Jimmy, for that comment. Big shout out. We really appreciate it. And that's one of the things that you'll see on Red Card Radio that we like to do a lot is we like to interact with you guys. So if you drop us a line, a comment, we will more likely than not, we will definitely like to address it on one of the episodes. We'll fit it in somewhere. But let's get into this major news story. So kind of broke news today. Today is
Yesterday.
well,
Yesterday it broke.
okay, yeah. Today for us as we're recording this, but you're listening to this in the future. So a little bit, you need to go. Happened on August 30th. How about that? Um,
Yeah.
but Scott Parker was relieved of his duties as the first team coach at Bournemouth. This follows in a string of defeats. Again, they lost. They beat Villa in the first game of the season. Got 3 points, and then have followed it up with a loss against Manchester City, which is probably expected, a loss against Arsenal, which to be fair is probably expected, and of course that 9-0 loss against Liverpool, which to be honest is probably expected. So if we want to balance this on the results, Bournemouth, if you look at the board, if you look at Scott Parker, the players, everyone when they looked at the schedule, I think if you said in the summer, we'll give you 3 points out of the first 4 games, do you think Bournemouth would have taken that? I think abso-freaking-lutely. And I think what they would have said is, we got 3 draws. And they would have been super happy with that. But they got a victory and 3 losses. So it feels like they've been and I mean, to be fair, they've gotten beaten up over the last 3 weeks. I think they've lost those 3 matches by a combined aggregate of 14 or 16 goals or something absurd like that. So it on paper, it doesn't look good for Bournemouth over the last 3 weeks. But to me, you can't fire Scotty Parker based on the first 4 matches unless there's something else going on behind the scenes. Now, Brad did send us a screenshot of the statement that was released on the Bournemouth website. I'm going to pull it up real quick and see if I can find it. Of course, I should have pre-planned this.
Yeah, some of us should have pre-planned it. I do want to remind everybody that I have my Buffalo Wild Wings bone to pick with this
That's
situation
right. Yeah, but
here coming up soon.
so this is the statement that Brad cut out and sent to us. It says, I believe this is from the statement from Bournemouth. It says, however, in order for us to keep progressing as a team and as a club, as a whole, it is unconditional that we are aligned. I don't think that doesn't make sense. He must have mistyped this. It is unconditional that we are aligned in our strategy to run the club sustainably. We must also show belief in and respect for one another. That is the approach that has brought this club so much success in recent history, and one that we will not veer from now. Our search for a new head coach will begin immediately. Long story short, the way I'm reading that is that Scott Parker said to the board, you need to sign some players. This isn't enough. We're going to get relegated if we don't reinforce. And the board was like, nah, we ain't going to do that. And so they sacked Scott Parker. I think it seems really harsh. So tell us about your Buffalo Wild Wings bone to pick. Not sponsored, but it could be sponsored. Hit us up, info.redcardradio@gmail.com, Buffalo Wild Wings.
Here's my problem with this. In the world that we live in, where no less than 3 teams are sponsored by betting websites, that bet on the first manager to get sacked, doesn't it seem a little fishy that a manager like this gets sacked? Like there was something. I'd be willing to bet that Fulham are sponsored by one of those said websites.
Bournemouth,
I'm sorry.
Scott Parker's already been previously sacked at Fulham. Yeah. So what you're alluding to, in your opinion, it looks fishy that
because I wanted to say it was Dafabet, wasn't it?
I don't
know. They are sponsored by Dafabet. So isn't this a little odd that maybe a lot of big money was coming in on many other managers, and Dafabet decided, we could take care of this right now and cash this out on the casino side.
The house always wins.
Don't you think? No, of course I'm being ridiculous because the signing is so ridiculously outplaced. When they play Arsenal, City, and Liverpool and get beat by all 3, their other one they played Fulham and won.
Villa.
Though they beat Villa and lost to 3 of the top 6 teams last year, and this is a newly promoted team. And out of those 4 games, you decided to sack him. Like, it's so ridiculously placed that you have to draw conclusions of, all right, there has to be something fishy going on here.
It's certainly beyond footballing reasons, beyond results.
Absolutely.
Because no one would have looked at what Bournemouth was set up for in the first 4 weeks and said it's unacceptable if you have if you have 3 points or less. Like, there's no way that was an expectation for Scott Parker to have more than 3 points. So,
I think if he came away with 4, they would have been ecstatic.
I wouldn't be surprised if you look at that and in behind closed doors, you're like, we're not going to get any points out of the first 4 matches. Aston Villa, they've spent a lot of money, as they always do. They have I want to use the past tense here. They had a kind of young, exciting manager in Gerrard. That doesn't seem like it's working out specifically, but it's just hilarious that we had this conversation last week about who was going to be the first manager fired. None of us brought up Scotty Parker, even though Bournemouth, clearly are having a tough time, because we all recognize that it would have been ridiculous to fire him on sporting merits, and then it happens. So
I'll tell you what, if Tottenham managers were fired when they lose to City, Chelsea, or City, Arsenal, and Liverpool, all of our managers would get fired.
Yeah,
exactly. All of them. Like any of our own 3 managers, if we were under those same constructs, would all get
sacked,
fired. Like, it's ridiculous. That's a ridiculous thing. So that's why it's either your side or it's nefarious on my side. It's Dafabet happens to sponsor Bournemouth and got a little too many bets on some place they didn't expect that is starting to look like Brendan Rodgers. It's starting to look like it might come true, and they had to take matters in their own hands, and then all of that money's gone to the house.
Detective Sean will have to get into that. But I think that's we need, let's shift gears here.
It's breaking here first. Yeah, let's shift the
Let's
gears.
shift gears to transfers. So the transfer window closes Thursday at 11 p.m. British Standard Time. Sean did the math, and he claims that that's 6 p.m. on Thursday on the East Coast of America. That's where we both reside. So a couple things that stand out. Manchester City just signed a center back today from Borussia Dortmund. Of course, Chelsea have been linked to literally anybody who moves and kicks a football, as to has Manchester United. But Manchester United, of course, just spent 100 million, basically 100 million pounds on Anthony from Ajax.
I want financial. I want somebody to investigate Ajax for the reverse of financial fair play. I want to know where they're reinvesting this money other than their pockets, because I did the math. I counted. I got to over $500 million in the past 3 years, just off the top of my head, without doing any Al Gore internet research.
They they're a phenomenally run football club.
That's Delit. That's De Jong. That's Ziyech. That's Lissandro Martinez, and that's this one. That's Anthony.
Yeah,
And that's just five off the top of my head. This is over $500 million.
yeah, they are an exceptionally run football club.
They're exceptional at running their own pockets.
I mean, they have, but this is Ajax's business model. They have a great academy. They are, and they have a lot of youth products, and they buy players really cheap, and they get a lot of exposure playing in big competitions in the Champions League, and they do well traditionally, and then they sell them for huge profits. So I mean, like, shout out to them. It's kind of the issue in today's. I mean, the problem is then you somehow lose in a Champions League semifinal to some chicken kicking team on some miracle stuff, and those players don't get a chance to play in the Champions League final.
Well, maybe
Yeah,
they should have been better.
it
Maybe they
happens.
should have been better. Maybe that should have proved why they shouldn't have been worth $100 million, $80 million, and $70 million, and $100 million. Oh, and ZH for $60 million.
Rapid fire, real quick. Are Spurs going to sign anybody?
No,
Okay.
we haven't going to be signing anything for a while.
Arsenal are linked to a center midfielder and a winger. We were apparently more interested in a winger, but with a injury now to both Mo El Neni and Thomas Partey, it kind of seems that Arsenal are redeploying to sign a center midfielder. So you could see Arsenal make a movement there.
You're redeploying Odegaard to center defensive mid is what you're redeploying.
I think
Anyways,
I think what would actually happen is you move Xhaka to the 6 and you bring in either Emil Smith Rowe or your boy Vieira to play on the left side and see what happens. Or you could have Lakanga come into the 6 and leave Xhaka on the left side at 8, but we'll see. So Arsenal may still be active. United, don't count United out. They clearly are still interested in signing some more players. Of course, Cristiano Ronaldo may move still, so there's some volatility there. Chelsea, I think, still look like they're looking to sign an attacking player. This Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang rumor just will not go away. I have a feeling that gets done. That sounds like a transfer deadline day thing. Manchester City are probably done after this center back signing that they made. Liverpool, I don't see them signing anyone. They really should, but I will be shocked if they sign someone.
they should, but they won't.
Um, and I think that rounds out most of the big clubs. I'm sure Nottingham Forest have about 6 or 7 more signings lined up. They're just gonna find some. Maybe they'll sign Scotty Parker. Hey, he could probably still kick a
Yeah.
ball.
Yeah, he's younger than Milner. So you threw the rapid fire on me. I'm going to cover while you laugh. Uh, you threw the rapid fire on me. I want to get a little bit more into the transfers
Oh,
for
sure.
Tottenham. I just wanted to, if Tottenham fans are listening to this, please hear me now. I'm going to move closer to the camera. Take my glasses off for this. We have labored for 5 6, 7, even 8 years of not doing diddly crap all summer and then having to panic buy Wanyama. And now we get all of our transfer done in early July before the preseason camp. And now you're mad because we're not moving $100 million for some Brazilian circus trapeze artist
Were they mad about
from
that?
from Ajax.
They were.
No, they want anybody. They want anybody for 50 to 60. They want to empty the war chest like there's not January or next year. No, we got all of our damn business done of everybody we wanted. Leave it alone.
Yeah, you guys have what, 10 points out
And
of 4?
smart money.
You have 10 points out of 4 games. You drew away at Chelsea. That's the only place you dropped points. I think Spurs fans should be happy with where you're at. I don't think
They no, the biggest one they want is like 70 to 80 on Anthony Gordon. I'm like, where does he play?
who are these Spurs
He's
fans? I think these have to be
I don't
bots.
know.
These have to be fake
Ha-
people.
It has to be Twitter bots where I just keep scrolling. I just keep scrolling.
Yeah.
I committed to memory. Keep scrolling though. You guys are idiots.
All right. That's it.
Best window we've had in probably 20 years.
Yeah, that's wild to me, man. That's wild to me. I think that's it. I think we're done.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. Keep checking back in throughout the week. We have a preview episode coming up for the rest of the matches coming up for you, and we will see you next time. Have a good one. Good night.